Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking a vital shortcut through some pretty high-stakes source material.
Yes, veterinary research specifically detailing common household and environmental poisons, the ones most dangerous to cats.
Right, and our mission is really to arm you with the knowledge that could genuinely save a life, focusing specifically on highly toxic poison baits.
And this info is so crucial because these baits, well, they're deliberately designed to be attractive and lethal.
Where do you typically find them?
Usually in settings where pest control is a big deal, think rural areas, barns, stables, maybe even some larger suburban gardens.
Used for what kind of pests?
Oh, gophers, mice, coyotes, other rodents. But the problem is straightforward. They taste good to animals, including cats.
Highly palatable is the term I think.
Exactly. So a curious cat might just eat them. And the substances inside, often incredibly fast acting, we're talking potentially fatal within minutes.
Wow. Okay, the sources lay out a real chemical minefield pet owners need to know about. We're dealing with things like strychnine, sodium fluoracetate, phosphorus, zinc phosphide, and metaldehyde. That's quite a list of dangerous stuff.
It is a sobering list, definitely. But it's important to mention a positive trend right up front.
Oh, good news.
Relatively speaking, yes. We are seeing these highly toxic sort of rapid kill baits being used less frequently now.
Why is that?
Well, this decrease isn't just random. It seems driven by serious concerns over non-target species, livestock, wildlife, and critically, the accidental poisoning of pets and even children.
So better regulation and just general awareness are helping.
Thankfully, yes. It seems to be lowering the prevalence of these specific toxins in the environment, which is a good thing.
I'm really glad to hear the trend is positive. But those 5 substances you listed, they're still out there.
Oh, absolutely. The risk isn't zero.
We probably can't dive super deep into all 5 today, but maybe before we zoom in on strychnine, which seems like the most notorious one,
Yeah, it has a distinct profile.
could we briefly touch on what makes the others so dangerous, even if they're used less often now, just for context?
Absolutely. It's like knowing the unique risk profile of the whole chemical neighborhood, right?
Okay.
So take sodium fluoroacetate, sometimes called compound 1080. It's one of the most strictly regulated pesticides basically anywhere.
Because it's so toxic.
Extremely. Often leads to sudden cardiac failure or really severe nervous system symptoms. It's highly restricted now, thankfully, but if a cat did encounter it, the prognosis is just terrible.
Grim. Okay, and what about the ones involving metals? You mentioned phosphorus and zinc phosphide.
Right. Zinc phosphide is interesting. It's often used in baits for rodents, groundhogs too. The danger there is when it gets metabolized in the stomach.
Yeah.
It releases phosphine gas, and that gas is toxic to the respiratory system. It rapidly destroys internal organs. It's particularly bad if the bait is eaten on a full stomach.
And the other one, metaldehyde.
Metaldehyde. That one's probably the most common one people might have around. It's the active ingredient in most slug and snail baits.
Oh yeah, you see those everywhere.
Exactly, even in suburban yards. And for cats, it causes severe muscle tremors, hyperthermia, really nasty neurological effects.
Okay, that definitely puts the scope into perspective. These aren't minor issues. They're all immediate, potentially lethal threats.
Precisely.
But let's follow the sources, like you said, and focus on strychnine. Historically common for rats, mice, moles, coyotes.
And the reason to focus on it is that the clinical picture it presents is just so specific, almost diagnostic in itself.
Right. And strychnine is where regulations have really made a difference, you mentioned.
Yeah, you see a direct link, its use gets restricted, poisoning incidents go down, the sources highlight the concentration limits.
What are those limits?
Well, in concentrations greater than 0.5%, it's restricted completely, only for certified professional exterminators.
But wait, the general public can still buy it in lower concentrations, like for moles or something.
Correct. It is available over the counter, let's say, in concentrations of 0.3% or less.
Is that still dangerous? 1.3% sounds tiny.
It sounds tiny, but that reduction, while helpful, doesn't make it benign. Not at all. That small percentage is absolutely still a fatal dose for a small animal, like a cat.
So this tiered regulation explains fewer cases, but the threat's still active.
Exactly. It hasn't gone away completely.
So if someone listening is, walking around a stable, a farm, or rural property, what should they actually look for visually? Because you'd want to spot this instantly.
Good question. The visual cue is usually pretty striking, and it's designed that way.
How so?
Commercially, strychnine often comes as small, coated pellets, and they're heavily dyed. Typically bright purple, maybe red or green.
Really intense colors then.
Yeah, very intense. Seeing those kinds of pellets scattered around should immediately set off major alarm bells. Treat them as extremely hazardous. Don't touch them.
Got it. Purple, red, green pellets. High alert. Okay, let's shift to what happens if ingestion actually occurs. This feels like the moment for really high-impact knowledge.
It is.
The sources say the signs of strychnine poisoning are so characteristic they practically diagnose themselves. And the onset. Less than 2 hours.
The speed is terrifying, honestly. The very first signs are often behavioral. You'll see agitation, kind of extreme excitability, maybe apprehension. The cat seems alert but terrified.
Okay, so behavioral first.
But these initial signs give way very, very quickly to the physical. We're talking within minutes. You move into intensely painful, full-body muscular seizures.
And what defines those seizures? What's the cat physically doing during that short period?
These are tonic seizures, meaning rigid, stiff. They usually last about 60 seconds, which feels like an eternity.
I bet.
And during that minute, the cat often goes into what's called epistatonus. It throws its head back rigidly, arches its spine, all the voluntary muscles just lock up in spasm.
Oh, that sounds awful.
And because the respiratory muscles seize up too, the cat literally cannot breathe. It'll turn blue very quickly from lack of oxygen. Cyanotic is the term.
That's horrific. Now, the sources mention one specific diagnostic test, almost a classic sign that allows for immediate confirmation. What is that?
Yes, this is the hallmark of strychnine poisoning. The animal, despite the seizures, remains hyper-aware between episodes, and crucially, the seizures are easily triggered by external stimuli.
What kind of stimuli?
Almost anything. The slightest thing gently tapping the cat, a loud noise like a door slamming, even just clapping your hands nearby can immediately trigger another one of these catastrophic muscular seizures.
Wow.
That characteristic, that hypersensitive response to stimulus, that's the definitive way a vet often confirms strychnine poisoning almost instantly.
So the body isn't just seizing randomly. It's actively, dangerously responsive to its environment.
Exactly.
You also mentioned other general nervous system signs. What else might an owner see, maybe leading up to a seizure or in between the spasms?
Well, you're seeing a massive assault on the central nervous, the CNS, brain, and spinal cord. So other symptoms tied to this include tremors, sometimes champing of the jaws, excessive drooling, severe uncoordinated muscle spasms, often collapse, followed by this really disturbing behavior where the cat looks like it's paddling its legs furiously, even while lying down.
Paddling?
Yeah. All these signs point towards rapid systemic failure caused by the toxin's effect on the CNS.
Okay, this leads to a really critical point the sources make about misdiagnosis.
Yes, this is a potential life or death teaching moment. Poisoning seizures, especially from CNS toxins like strychnine, can sometimes be misdiagnosed as epilepsy.
And that's a fatal mistake.
The sources are really emphatic about this. Yes, it's a fatal mistake because poisoning demands immediate, aggressive veterinary intervention. Typical epilepsy is handled very differently.
Okay, so for someone listening who maybe does have a cat with diagnosed epilepsy, how can they tell the difference in that moment? What are the key features of a typical epileptic seizure that set it apart?
The key differences are usually predictability and duration. True epileptic seizures tend to be quite short, usually lasting only a few minutes. And critically, they typically don't recur immediately in the same episode.
Okay.
Furthermore, for a cat with established epilepsy, the signs almost always appear in the exact same predictable order every single time. Each attack looks just like the last one.
There's a pattern.
Exactly. And they're also, generally speaking, rarely considered immediate emergencies because the seizure itself is often over before the cat could even get to a veterinary clinic.
Whereas strychnine is unpredictable, clearly painful, triggered by touch or sound, and potentially lethal very quickly.
Precisely the distinction.
So if an owner suspects poisoning, not epilepsy, what's the immediate first aid protocol? The source mentions inducing vomiting, but it sounded like only in a very specific, narrow window.
Yes, you have to assess the animal right away. If and only if the cat is showing just the very first signs of toxicity, maybe just that initial agitation or apprehension, and it hasn't vomited on its own yet.
Then what?
Then the sources suggest inducing vomiting might be helpful to try and remove any undigested poison still in the stomach.
But there are major warnings attached to that,
Yeah.
right? Huge contraindications.
Absolutely critical warnings. You must not attempt to induce vomiting if the cat shows any signs of central nervous system involvement, meaning any labored breathing, any tremors, or definitely if the seizures have already started.
Why not?
Because trying to induce vomiting in that state means handling the cat, maybe forcing something into its mouth. That's the exact kind of stimulus that can trigger another potentially fatal seizure. Don't do it.
Okay, crystal clear.
Yeah.
So if any signs of CNS involvement are present tremors, seizures, breathing issues, we skip first aid and go straight to emergency transport.
Immediately, yes.
How should the cat be handled for that trip to minimize the risk?
Time is absolutely critical. Don't delay. But how you transport them matters immensely.
Okay.
It is vital to avoid loud noises, sudden movements, or any unnecessary handling. Remember, any stimulus is a potential trigger.
So keep things calm and quiet.
As much as humanly possible. The recommendation is to gently cover the cat with maybe a coat or a blanket. This helps dampen light and sound stimulus, and then immediately, carefully get to the nearest veterinary clinic. Quiet, careful movement is key to keeping the cat as stable as possible.
Right. Once you're safely in professional care, the clock is still ticking. What specific medical treatments will the vet likely use to try and save the cat?
The absolute primary goal is immediate and total seizure control. It's those intense muscle spasms, the rigidity, that ultimately kill the cat by stopping breathing.
So they need to stop the seizures first.
Instantly. The veterinarian will administer fast-acting medications intravenously, OV, Typically, that means diazepam, which is Valium, or specific types of barbiturates.
And why those particular drugs?
They are powerful central nervous system depressants and also muscle relaxants. Their job is essentially to override the toxic signals causing those uncontrolled muscle spasms.
To break the seizure cycle.
Exactly. Break the cycle, allow the cat to breathe again. Once the seizures are under control and the cat is stabilized somewhat,
Then what happens?
then the cat is usually placed in a very dark, very quiet room, often padded, and it's disturbed as little as possible. The goal is basically sensory deprivation.
Remove all potential triggers.
Precisely. Eliminate every possible stimulus that could potentially reignite the convulsions while the body works to metabolize and clear the poison.
Okay, this has been incredibly focused, really actionable information, especially separating out the unique danger signs of strychnine.
Mm-hmm.
I think the main takeaway for you, the listener, has to be knowing that rapid timeline, less than 2 hours, and really understanding that the stimulus-triggered seizure is that key diagnostic sign.
Absolutely.
And crucially, knowing when intervention like inducing vomiting might be okay only in that very early stage and when it's absolutely dangerous and contraindicated because of any CNS involvement.
That distinction is vital.
Yeah.
And maybe if we just connect this knowledge back to the sort of broader picture of public safety for a second, the sources really do emphasize how effective regulation seems to have been, specifically limiting the concentration of something like strychnine down to that 0.3% for public sale. It has helped mitigate accidental risks.
Right. Fewer incidents.
Fewer, but not zero. And this, I think, raises an important kind of final thought for you listening. We've seen how deadly these regulated poisons are, even in lower concentrations. So how many common items used for pest control around us, even those seemingly harmless snail baits or ant poisons in the garden shed, might still pose an unseen but deadly threat that maybe we don't fully respect?
That's a really good point. We see the packaging, maybe don't read the fine print.
Exactly. It's definitely worth taking a closer look at the labels next time you spot those kinds of pest control products, whether it's in your own home, your garden, or out in the wider neighborhood. Just be aware.